gospel to people all over.
But God
said,
always
"You talking to me?"
uses people that you just don't think he would use to really
My question,
transform the
the
world.
reason I
Right.
brought
Man,
it
look.
up is because I would have said, "Who am I? You
Right.
you
That's
talking
what
to me?"
everybody says.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you did, in a sense, when Smith sat down and shared the good news with you,
Yeah.
which was just the fast forward of this story and a lot
That's
of others.
correct.
He basically explained to you that
They're
Jesus came to
live
this
over there
earth.
now. This
Guess
is
what
a
Jesus said
premiere.
when the Jews
I
said,
probably
"Who are
should have
you?"
started it at the beginning. I
What
will.
authority do you have? And he said, "I am."
That's
oh,
right.
I
that
love
I
it.
am.
It's the greatest
It's the
line
same.
I
in
had
the
just
history.
We'll start it back at the beginning.
I am unashamed. What about you?
We don't want you to grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. We don't want you to be ignorant about those who fall asleep, or to grieve like the rest of men
That's
who have
from
no.
1 Thessalonians 4.
4:11
Right.
and 4:13,
Right.
and then it says we believe Jesus died and rose again.
Right.
So we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in Him. Well, the only thing they could be bringing, if your body's in the cemetery, is your soul, your spirit.
Right.
And as it turns out, you're reunited with a resurrected body that will live. Well, immortality has just taken place.
Right.
And that's the hope, and that's the promise, and that's the guarantee. So I'm looking at it like, well, you said,
What's
before, we
up,
don't have
Info
many-
Warriors?
many- on the other side.
Right.
On the other side. So it's a comforting thing. Before I was converted, I was leasing a beer joint, ladies and gentlemen, a beer joint. You're like, where they're
That's a
fighting
bar,
and
by the way, for
drunkenness.
the modern
And
vernacular.
look,
Redneck bar.
And at my conversion, the reason I was converted is my younger sister, Janice Ellen, told a preacher, a proclaimer, and a good one. She told him, if you convert my brother, he'll convert thousands. And the preacher said, say what? She said, if you convert him, let's go up there to the beer joint. You convert him, thousands will be converted. My little sister is telling the preacher that. That's what happened.
Yeah.
I was converted. And by me being converted would, in fact, as my sister had predicted, reach thousands. So if you look at it, Al,
Yeah.
like I say, the little strands
That's right.
on the way it works out things is beyond your. I would have never, if someone had come to the beer joint and said, hey, by the way, dude, before this is all over, you'll be carrying your Bible and preaching the gospel.
Jack
to
Rabbit,
people all over the world.
Info Warriors.
God
said, "You
always
talking to me?"
uses people.
I don't know if
that
my
you just
mic
don't
was muted a
think
minute ago, Info Warriors, when I
would-
greeted
he
you, but
would use
if it
to
was,
really
I apologize.
My question,
transform the
the
world.
reason I
Man,
brought it
look.
up is because because I would have said, who am I? You
Right.
That's
talking
what
to me?
everybody says.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you did, in a sense, when Smith sat down and shared the good news with you,
Yeah.
which was just the fast forward of this story and a lot
That's
of others.
correct.
He basically explained to you that Jesus came to this earth. Guess what Jesus said when the Jews said, who are you? To what authority do you have? And he said, I am.
That's
oh,
right.
I
that I
love it.
am.
It's the greatest
It's the
line
same
I
thing.
had
in the
just
history of humanity. The greatest line is when they said, "Where's that in John?"
Yeah. John 8.
He says, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I am."
That's right.
From beer joint to
That's right.
sharing the good news. I look back at it now, I'm thinking, a lot of times I ask myself, why me? You know,
Right.
because I'm still
Who am I?
saying, you know, how in the world would you have considered me?
It's a great point. And every one of
Yeah.
us can ask that question.
Phil was teaching a Bible class while he had
He was passing a kidney stone.
kidney stones. And they said, you might ought to go to the hospital over that. And Phil's like, nah, it'd be all right. And so about halfway through the class, he goes down to one knee, and I thought, well, this is something he's going to show people when you pray
It's
or
like
humility. I thought it was an illustration. And he said, everybody rest easy. I'm in a little bit of pain here. And then he turned over and went, he's still teaching. He went on his back So just imagine there's a class full of people looking toward the podium, and there's a man looking like Phil does on his back. Look, and he started raising his feet up the wall, and he kept on.
Said, trying to get a little relief here, but never fear, I'll finish my lesson.
And look, his intensity
He never
returned.
stopped.
He never stopped the lesson.
Hmm.
And finally, after it was the time, okay, it's been 45 minutes that a man taught with his head pointing the other way with his feet up on the wall.
Did he have a Bible?
Yeah, had his Bible. And
I'll turn over and read it, And the further I went, my mouth finally, there was so much pain. I said, I don't know whether my mouth's going to keep moving or not.
his lips started quivering. And I thought, this man's fixed to die right here. And he's my dad. And they
In
literally
the Bible class.
in Bible class, and they finally convinced him to go up,
Well,
which
the
was
nurses back in the back, 'cause we had some medical people there, they were up there betting on
Whether you'd finish.
Is he going to make it or not? So they were placing their bets.
So the idea
he'll
just say,
never
you know
make
what?
it. And someone said, oh, he'll make it.
Of course, then he goes to the hospital and they say, we got to go up in there and see what's going on. And Phil said, whoa, go up in there.
I said, start with that. Go,
How does that work?
Explain that one.
So
Go
Phil
up in
gave
there.
him a exegesis on what a one-way road is
Yeah.
supposed to
yeah,
mean.
that's supposed to be an
But
off-ramp.
anyway, they said, well, Phil, we're going to put you under. And I'm getting to the point that Phil does not, when he has an ailment, he just doesn't do what normal people do. And he said, I would rather you not put me under, because he's kind of weird about
By
that.
the way, we're in the book of John, and speaking of the resurrection of the dead, I learned about the resurrection of the dead during that process, because when they finally said this kidney stone is hung right where the two urethra, right in there where the one tube coming out of this kidney, one coming out of that one, there's a little fork in the road there. Well, it
Is that a
lodged.
medical?
The thing
It's got a fork in
lodged
the
right
road.
there. That's why I said go up in there. We're gonna look. Hey, whoa.
I'm getting queasy.
So look, they go up in there and they see this thing. They
Fork
said,
in the
"Well, we
road.
got to surgically remove it, whatever." He said, "We're gonna have a little piece of looks like y'all catch garfish or rod and reel. Their teeth get hung on. It's a little fuzzy ball." He said, "We're gonna foul that thing." And I said, "So what's the next move?" He said, "Come on out of there with it." So that's what they decided to do to get rid of it. Well, I laid back when it came time for them to go hunting for the kidney stone, and the guy said, some nurse said you're gonna feel a little warm pain in your arm. So they stick a needle in me, and I'm sitting there, and look, in a matter of seconds, I'm sitting there and I just start and I fall asleep. As soon as my eyes closed like that. Now listen to this carefully. You'll learn about the resurrection of the dead.
From a kidney stone.
From a kidney stone.
Okay.
I had never been under the knife, as they say, except right here.
Yeah.
So my eyes closed. And look, the next thing I know, it's my eyes were like this. I opened them. I closed them, and there was no passage of time. There was no, I hope he hurries up. I closed my eyes because he said it's going to be a little warm feeling in your arm. I closed my eyes and I opened them. And when I opened them, I said, let's get the show on the road. let's just get this thing over with. He said, the show's over. The doctor said the show's over. And I said, what? He said, the show's over. I said, did you get the kidney stone? He said, I got the kidney stone. And he had it in a bottle. And he shook it like that and handed it to me. And I said, I finally understand the resurrection of the dead. And he said, told one of them nurses, I think he's hallucinating. Take him back to his room. I said, I ain't hallucinating. I said, no. I said, no time passed for me.
Yeah.
I said, how long was that whole procedure? He said, about an hour. I said, I closed my eyes and I opened them. That could have been 100 hours. It'd have been the same result. I'd have closed my eyes, and 100 hours later, I'd have opened them. But at the time that passed for me was like this, that long. The people who have died before us, they're asleep. That's why the Bible says they've fallen asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's like going under the knife.
Yeah.
Well, if that had been 10 years, if they could have got some tubes, I mean, it fed me, it would have still been this long.
Right.
I'd have closed my eyes. 10 years later, I'd open them. The Apostle Paul and all of them, they've fallen asleep, their bodies, but they open
And
that.
you're
The
right.
worst it can be when you pass, when you physically die, you close your eyes. No time passes for you
Right.
because you're dead asleep.
Right.
No time passes, and look, you just close your
So
eyes.
1,000
open 'em.
years go by.
I think
1,000
that's
years
why-
go by, and you say, "Boy, Resurrection Day." That's the worst it could be. I'm a 74-year-old male. I'm listening to the man, God who becomes a man, a human being, God in flesh, John 1:14. And I've come to a conclusion. I love him.
Yeah, that's good.
Now look,
Yeah.
I've had trouble even telling my woman I loved her. But and for
Hey.
the first 30 years after my conversion, I didn't go around telling people I love Jesus because
Yeah.
they're like, "You what?" But at 74, I love him.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's good.
Because I read this and I'm like, he who does not love me will not obey what my command.
It's like it's like a
I
relationship.
mean, it has to be deeper than.
gotta be
Oh, I
deeper.
better not mess up. It's like,
can't-
no, I
yeah.
love my Lord. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's like when I
the-
was a kid, Phil and Kay, they didn't tell us they loved us. I mean, it just wasn't.
do you remember the first time that he told you that?
It wasn't the Robertson way. In
I
case I ever
mean,
missed it,
was
Jace, trust me now, I do love you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's probably the third or fourth time. I mean, I was a grown adult. And no,
Yeah.
Phil did it through. He made a big deal the first time because he just said, "I never have said this," So
Well, I think Al told me the story, Phil. Bill Smith had preached a sermon on love. Everybody was grown, and you felt
Yeah.
convicted by it. So you come
Yeah.
home and everybody's eating lunch or whatever, and you say, "Hey, everybody, stop what you're doing. I got to tell y'all something.
yeah, I think I remember this.
I was going to tell y'all, I love you."
Yeah,
And Al said, everybody's like,
and then everybody laughed because it was like, "Well, that wasn't that."
Yeah. And when I told you about scratching the head, I scratched my head on things like love your enemies.
"Yeah,
I'm like,
Well, right.
do what? He said, love your enemies. So I always tell them the hook net story when the people were stealing fish from me. And I'd always scared them off with the shotgun
Yeah.
saying, don't be stealing my fish. Yeah. So finally one day I said, Jesus said, love them. I said, it won't work, but I'll try it
mhm.
because he said it. So I said, I'm actually going to see if that works. Well, I go out there and the people who are stealing my fish, I said, boys, I got them at gunpoint, but I didn't have the gun on them. I had a gun with me just in case. But then I said,
"Love."
I
It
said,
was
guys, you
conditional.
don't have to steal them. I'll give them to you. And they looked at each other.
But
and
that did work better.
it
yeah.
actually did.
Yeah,
Well,
They quit stealing
wait.
from it.
what started us to be on TV was a commercial, and
That's right.
Benelli, became our sponsor. Not because we wanted to leave Browning. They said we no longer, thank you. We no longer need your services, which
Right.
is kind of how it goes when you have sponsors
Sure.
for videos and all. So Benelli, I think it was one of the funniest moments ever because they wanted to do a commercial because they really liked our videos. And they said, we want to do a commercial. Would y'all do it for Benelli? And we'll give you whatever money for your to help you do your video. And look, it was not big money.
No, it wasn't back then.
Everybody's like, oh, you got
I think
Benelli.
we were more excited about getting the Benelli shotguns.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're doing it to get the shotgun because I mean they're proud of it.
They have a high dollar,
Yeah.
but it's a great gun.
So they all come down. This is before any of us has ever seen a TV crew or people. And so here's a small crew, which it looked big to me back then.
There's
three
about 4 or 5.
Yeah, three
Yeah.
or 4 people, and they got some cameras. And the guy who leaded it, who became known as the Marine, he was like getting out. They had, sheets of paper and with dialogue. And Phil was just standing there. He kept saying, y'all ready? Y'all ready? And they were like, yeah, we'll be right with you, Phil. I mean, they were like, no, I think if he says this, we'll do this 3 times. Phil said, y'all ready? Y'all ready? And everybody kept talking. And finally,
But tell them the premise.
well, they were going to say, what is the best shotgun? And they wanted
What's
him
up,
to
Joe?
They were looking
to-
at some catchy
Hi, when I first-
lines or
Yeah.
phrases.
promote their
They were
best
looking for
shotgun.
hook
When
that
I first read your comment, I thought you said I had loser sights from my spear gun. I just kind of chuckled. Like, damn, Joe, you going in on me already this morning or this afternoon?
so we got a hook if he says this about it, but what
Yeah.
they're all arguing about what they want me to say.
That's right. And so, which is what TV people do.
Oh yeah.
And Phil said, "Y'all ready? I got it." And it's like, "Well, you got what?" Phil's like, "I got the line. You can save all that crap." And so the
Which is kinda
Marine,
how the way we filmed that.
the Marine, to his credit, which is why he became one of the producers of the show.
That's right.
He said, "Hey," he kind of jumped on the crew. He said, "Hey, turn the camera on and shut your mouths and let's hear what he's got to say." And so they turned the cameras on, and Phil said, "The best shotgun is one that goes boom, boom, boom." And it was like a weird silence. And then they all kind of chuckled.
Yeah.
And Phil said, "That'll do it." And so, like, start getting his mic off, you know. And the Marine said, "You know what? I think he's right." And when he said that, the look on the crew's faces were like, "Are you crazy? Are you insane?"
We've
But
set this whole thing up, brought all these
Yeah.
people here.
But he was right. It was a great line, and they used that was the line.
Oh,
they
it was
used
their
in the
hook.
commercial.
So
What
tell-
I was saying, if you analyze it,
What's up, potential?
is you want it to function.
Hey,
Right.
in
Boom,
a creative
boom,
way.
Boom.
Right.
That's right. I said it in a way where they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "It will fire when you pull the trigger
Right.
because shotguns have habits of hanging up."
Oh yeah.
Because most people, when they do a commercial, they're like, "Hi guys, use this Benelli Super Black Eagle 3. It's great for functionality." Well, people, they quit listening when he went, "Hi guys," they gone.
That's right.
They own a
That's-
point. But if
Hey,
you can
hey.
say something that makes people think that's not on the nose, which granted is why we started doing a TV, because the Marine, he thought, that was kind of clever. We need to get these guys a TV show. And so that introduced Benelli Presents Duck
The
Commander.
commander. Paul makes a point.
You got you? Yep, he got you. Al. He's in your shirt. You got him? There he is. One finally got
You
Did he
sting him?
you? Yeah, he's done me. Oh man. And then he gave the death. I'll kill him. Well, I think he crippled, but I will kill him for you.
You crippling.
I
Al,
told you somebody's
hey, get longer whiskers.
that was a first.
That's as fast as I've ever seen you move in years.
Well, you're all bound down with this crazy
We were just talking about sin, what it causes. That's the sting of sin right
thing of
there.
sin. Mm.
Yeah, you need to tell that story, what just happened. Because I hope he caught that on film.
No, I think he caught it.
Oh, he got it.
The man got
Ladies and
We've been
gentlemen,
fighting
you
him.
just watched an attack of the evil one working through wasps and stinging the brothers.
Oh man,
Got you on the neck?
right on the neck.
Yeah,
The sting of sin. Do I?
And they wonder why. That's the ravages of sin. And he's wondering why we're trying to get people out of it.
Well, I can't
You can
think.
take a wasp sting and not even curse. I liked it.
I didn't curse, and I had to crush it, but then he
No, I
came out
saw
the
it.
bottom of my shirt.
I killed him for you.
Good
You
job.
you had stifled him.
Think about it, Al. Life is miserable when you're in between wasp stings. But think about the sinful people who get stung by wasps. Just think about it. They would still be hollering.
guess
I'll
it's
tell you this:
perfect
this
illustration.
podcast. Well, it turned into, for the first time in almost 600 podcasts, it went from a storytelling to action and adventure.
I know this is going to sound bad, but I would have swore that Uncle Si would have been gone before Phil. It's just crazy, you know. Hell, Si's been in bad shape for a while.
We had an action scene.
The sting of
must say,
sin is
I
down.
knew what had come to him, and I knew that he had to fight it.
Well,
But that's what the way you ought to view sin. You see them coming out, and they have a sting.
it's actually the perfect illustration for what we're talking about. I hate I was the one
The
that
sting
illustrated.
of sin is death.
But see, what happened is that Wasp heard us talking about giving life for making the world a better place, and he thought, I'm just going to give my life for the rest of these wasps here,
Because they've been just buzzing around here this whole podcast.
He just flat out.
He just came right in for the kill, right to the
He
neck.
attacked you for no reason.
No reason. That's what gets me.
Yeah,
But that's why does Satan attack us? What did you ever do to him?
that's it. What reason did he have?
I mean, we never did anything to him.
That poor Walsh just gave his life for stinging
He
you.
did. And thank you, Jace, for killing. So here was the verse before I was so rudely interrupted by the wasp. This concept of justice. I say, okay, just run it all just like it happened. Because whoever paid to subscribe to Overtime is going to be
I
very
would paid to see that.
I would recommend that we bump that one segment up into the actual, like, has the intro for the main body.
Here's what you'll see.
You'll see it.
Longer whiskers would have helped because it covers the area that wasp got it up inside your shirt.
Maybe.
Look here,
No, that's
your
a
whiskers are
Robertson
like
trait,
this.
Phil. You've been
You
doing
need
this
like
for years.
this.
When something bad happens, Phil immediately assesses
This
blame.
would never happen.
Whiskers wasn't long enough.
That's longer whiskers because one lit and his whiskers are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. All right. Well, let me read my verse about justice.
on the topic of love. Love is patient. Love is kind. Now, just think
Hey,
about when
Anthony.
somebody's life is on the line. Love is patient.
Appreciate
Love is
it. Hope your
kind.
day is wonderful.
Love does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. You got to remember when Jesus talked about when he talked about murder, he said hatred, you get the same penalty.
Mm.
Just to hate your brother. You've heard it said from long ago, don't murder. But I tell you that anyone who hates his brother is a murderer. That's the way he put it.
Right.
You say, so hatred is
Yeah, I've
on line
heard
with
that
murder. So what? I'm getting there. Do we have the right self-defense? Love is not rude. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. If a person had these qualities, there would be no murders.
Right.
It keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, rejoices with the truth. Here's the key. Love always protects. Someone says, do I have the right to defend myself? Have these kind of qualities as you go forth. I looked up the definition of protect. You say love always protects. How? Protect, to shield from injury. You love someone, you'll say, whoa, that old tree is rotten. We need to get back. Don't get back behind the car. Be careful when you park, whether you're driving a vehicle, walking across your yard, you say love. If you see someone fixing to be hurt, love means to shield, to protect, to shield from injury, to shield from danger or loss, to guard and look. Protects means to defend. You say, so your family is in jeopardy. Danger is out there and it's coming
Yeah, I
your
was
way.
kind of surprised they went live today.
You would love your family enough to say,
Pre-recorded video, but
I must protect you. If it happens to your neighbor, you would have every right to go over there and say, I love y'all, and I see this gang coming. I see the mob coming after you. I'm going to stand my ground with you, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to protect you. Whatever means possible. That's my view of self-defense.
I think it's a good point.
Yeah, because if it's possible, you'd a lot rather have a Bible study with these 5 thieves that are going to take over your house and rape your wife and children.
Right.
You'd rather sit down with a Bible study. You love them enough to say, look, I'm going to spare you. I'm not holding against you. But you keep pressing forward and you have weapons of war in your hands and you're coming toward me or my family.
But it also,
I love my family enough to shield them and protect them.
that's right. What's up, Extreme?
He said in 1 Corinthians 13, if I speak in the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding
Cop
gong
Top, what's going
or
on?
clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy, and that's mentioned in Mark,
if I have the gift of prophecy, can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. Now, you alluded to the guy was not living right.
Sure
to begin
enough,
with.
Copper Top.
And
Sure
kind of
enough.
that's the fuel where all this come from.
You know, and one
if I
thing,
give all I possess to the
and let me
poor and
say
surrender
this.
my body to the
one thing that like, you know, Phil never changed for the camera. He's the same person on screen as he is off screen. A lot of people try to get on here and pretend that there's something that they're not. And then, like, when you meet some of these people in real life, you're kind of disappointed and let down, right? Because they put this image off at their certain way or what have you. You never got that with this bunch right here.
flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love's patient. It's kind. Love does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. It's not rude. It's not self-seeking. Now, these are qualities that are a little more harder to reach. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And love never fails. But notice he said, but where there are prophecies, and this thing is flowing together, and the kingdom of God is coming together as a
That's
cohesive
what's up,
unit.
Jamie. How you doing there, Bob?
They will, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. There'll come a time when people who get up and start telling you what's fixing to happen and all
You
that,
can learn something new
all
every
we have
day
is
if you're
what's
willing
written.
to listen.
and I think it's been shut down for a while. Where there are tongues, it's mentioned. People having the ability to speak in any language they run up on. The apostles had it when they took off from in Acts chapter 2. They'll be
Yeah, he
they'll be
just had
silent.
passed.
Where there
the
is
other day.
knowledge in a spiritual sense about fathom all mysteries, it'll pass away.
You know, that's
For
a
we
good
know in
thing.
part,
That
and
is
we
a good
prophesy
thing
in part.
about all the videos and them being on TV and stuff like that. They'll always have a lot of footage that they can go back and revisit if they ever have questions about anything that he may have said. You know what I mean? Because they got a lot of footage of it for sure.
But when perfection comes, and it's resting on the love of God and the love of each other,
That's right, Jamie.
the imperfect disappears. He said, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I talked like a child, I reasoned like a child. I became a man, I put childish ways behind me, claiming you can do this and that and the other. Now we see a poor reflection, but we shall see face to face. I know in part,
What's up, Tex?
then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And this is the point of these three remain: faith, hope, and love. The greatest of those is love. So he's making it far more simple than human beings tend to do.
Jason, let me explain.
One thing about it,
You're
we
50.
all gonna pass,
I'm
right?
74. I said, when you get to be 74 and you're dog tired, it doesn't make any difference where you look at your woman and she's clothed or not clothed. You're still tired. That's the difference between 54 and 74.
So when you were 50,
I just want to
so
give him some encouragement.
when you were
words.
50, there would have been a spark that you
Well,
weren't
right.
that
I'd have been
That's
tired.
what
like this.
happened.
Whoa, I'm not tired anymore. These days, I'm like, I'm tired when I got here, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm
Right.
still tired.
I'm not tired anymore.
Old age is creeping in.
When my grandmother, because I stayed more with her than I did my mama, they ran their store. And I remember the little bit of memories I have of Papa, that was my nanny's husband, and them as they carried on, which I remember they had 2 double beds with a nightstand in between. But every night, they're so old, but they reached across and they held hands. And, just little things like that. It was so touching. And then I remember the 2 rocking chairs in front of her heater. And she would read the Bible to Papa. She would read it. And I mean, the best she could. She wasn't that good because, they didn't have a education, everything like that. But there were so many things that I observed in that, that it was just
Hey,
like,
hey,
wow. I mean, you could know they loved each other. You could know it wasn't perfect, and all kind of
Every
things.
night when Kay goes to, there's a hand that comes through the covers, and it just sits there, that hand. And I'm like, I grab that hand, she squeezes mine, then pulls the hand back. Then we're going to sleep.
That's good.
Just
Yeah,
make-
that's-
Well, you got a romantic side. I never
Well,
knew that.
yeah, just to make sure everybody's still there.
I'm
right?
just telling you, when the grandma was talking about, that position,
Yep.
that's every night that hand comes out of the
Just
cover.
make sure.
Yep.
Checking for a
We
pulse.
should have
or
put
is
that
it-
in the movie.
Well, I think it's just all right.
Well, I hope
Let's
Missy,
sleep on it.
I
You know
hold
what I'm saying?
Missy's hand a lot because she's cold natured, and
That's true. It warms me
so I
up.
always, even yesterday, because I thought she's probably cold in here because it was a little
In
drafty,
church,
and I grabbed her hand, and sure enough, it
like
felt
ice.
like 2 ice cubes. So, I mean, it's just a little way.
It's the little things. So
Yeah, I'm
if
like,
you
let
think
me
about
warm
it,
her
it's the
hand
little
up.
things
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
so. But if
I
somebody
feel
walked
left
by,
out not having Zach here to say something nice about me.
yeah,
My point is, if you never see the hand come out from the covers and there's a little squeeze, something's not right there.
Mm.
That's kind of solidifies what we're doing here.
yeah.
Here's my hand. What is?
And never
Okay.
did I know he took that and noticed it or anything.
My little wife, Miss Kay, there was a note on the chair leg where I sit watching the ball games and Matt Dillon, and there was a note there, and it said, I'm going to town. She gave her a little update where she was going. She said, "You are my best friend ever." And then right below that, it said, "Except for Jesus." But when you're in a situation where your woman is telling you, "You're not my best friend, Jesus is, but you're a close second," it makes me feel better.
That's what's up.
I said, "Guess what we're hearing right now?" I said, "Not one sound." I said, "It's completely quiet." I said, "We're under these big oak trees in my yard." I said, "There's not a sound anywhere."
Right.
I said, "How in the world would human beings not recognize that as a good place to be?" It's just, of course, maybe it's just me, but
I don't
it
know.
was completely silent. We get over in them woods we own over at Jace. We get out in the middle of that thing. You just wouldn't believe what you're not hearing.
Yeah.
It's just calmness for the mind, peace of mind. I'm on record as saying peace of mind is the rarest commodity there is
Mm.
because people just can't be quiet. Be in a place
That's the truth.
where
Hey, I
I look
Yo.
at in the streets and I'm hearing them holler and scream and running, and I'm thinking, I said,
Ain't that
I
the
look,
truth?
and every time I look, you say, "Where is it?"
Yeah.
On a city street. That's where it is.
I envision
It's one of the
Phil
saddest things I've
in-
ever watched
in
in
an
my
urban
life.
city on a street corner with a sign that says, "Shut up."
Be quiet.
I would love to go onto any city street and have a sign that says, "I'm here, and I hope y'all will shut up." Because I would just like to hear it calm down where people smile and walk on by. But for the stuff that's coming out of there, they won't stop. They get within 6 inches of
Must
a
have been
man's
in
face,
Kentucky.
2 inches, and the protesters are screaming at these guys who, it's a tough road, the
No,
police,
it's terrible.
and they're right in their faces calling them all these names, and all this stuff is just coming out of them. And I look
Corona
at it,
spittle.
and I'm watching it, and I'm thinking, boy, that's city life. That's the place to be. I am anti-city, period. Sorry.
I think we've got that established. So every time we go to New York, which we have to do from time to time, that is the one thing.
Oh, it's
You're
just right now, chills are going down my spine. Oh, my
Well,
goodness.
good news for you, Dad. I would
The
imagine.
last time I was in New York City, they had a police department. By the time we get there, there'll be $1 billion less for the cops. And I'm thinking, boy, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Everyone has to understand When you come to Jesus and your past sins are removed, they are really removed. They're not counted against you. It's over. You are justified before God, even with all the sins that you had.
Yeah.
Some of these younger bucks in America now, they're thinking that it's going to be instantaneous relief and you don't have to walk a godly life. We're the light of the world, the salt of the earth, because we're in the light of the world, Jesus. And we just need to understand that you're never going to get past your struggle with sin. The great news is your sins are forgiven, and there is the mediating work of Jesus that will keep you cleansed.
Yeah.
And you need to learn things like self-control and how to live your life and how to show people what the light of the world looks like. We are being like Jesus in a sin-filled world, and our struggles are there, but they've been paid for, so we don't need to be always singing the blues. That's kind of the 3 or 4 that wrote us,
What's great?
I'm not worth it. My wife deserves more than me, and I'm struggling with the internet pornography. They just have to learn. You just have to start taking things that are sinful and get past them, but it's a struggle, and it'll last you the rest of your life. But I'm just saying, it looks like to me, in this time, our current situation, Jace, what in the world would be wrong with people seriously contemplating?
Ain't that the truth?
Why don't we just
That
be
is the truth,
like Jesus?
Tech.
There wouldn't be warfare, hatred between us. There would be forgiveness.
You see it happen every day. People just lay down and just give up. And that's the worst thing that you can do, no matter what it is, Now, like I was saying earlier, a simple life is the way to go. But that don't mean that you got to just lay down and just give up on everything.
And that'd be love, and be patience, love for God and love for your neighbor, Al. It comes hard. Yeah. It's hard. At one time, we too were foolish, disobedient. The book of John, we've been reading about these people, deceived and enslaved by all kinds of passions and pleasures. We lived in malice and envy, being hated and hating one another. You're like, things haven't changed a bit. But, and this is what we're discussing, and here's a good thought for today. Titus 3, by the way. But when the kindness and love of God our Savior appeared, God in flesh, standing on the earth, the book of John we're studying, he saved us. What's this? Not because righteous things we have done, but because of his mercy. He saved us through the washing of rebirth and renewal by the Holy Spirit. When the kindness and love of God our Savior appeared. And going back to Jason's point, he knew how to love. He said, you got evil deeds, all of you. I love you so much. I love you so much. I'm going to remove your sin and raise you from the dead.
That's what's up.
No doubt about it. It's been the most exciting thing, one thing I've ever done in my life.
What?
To see people go from, like your buddy there, you was talking,
from lost to
go
saved.
from lost to saved.
Oh, that's right.
It's the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life, is being a part of that. Following Jesus, the guy that ordered the duck call, that's all he wanted was a duck call. And in the midst of that, he cursed God. He would GD this and GD that. So I finally, before he hung up, I said, by the way, he said, you got my duck call coming? I said, yeah, I got it coming. I said, by the way, I said, why do you keep cursing the only one that saved you from death? And it was silence. Well, he said, hey, send me my duck call. Well, about 10 minutes went by and the phone rang. He said, hey, it's me again. He said, you know what? I never thought about that. I said, well, you're cursing him. And I said, unless he can get you out of here alive, I don't know nothing, no one else that could. I said, you know what you ought to do? You ought to come over here and I'll tell you about the one you're cursing. You may change your mind. He said, I might do that. I said, well, you ought to. Well, a week goes by, I knock on the door. He steps in the door and he said, I'm the one that was cursing God. And you told me you're going to show me why I shouldn't. So I told him about Jesus. He was converted.
about 15 or 20 years later, I ran into him, and he was one of the leaders at that church where I was speaking. So you never know. We're not here to judge the world. James is going to say, I've been reading chapter 4, but the last thing he says, basically, there's only one lawgiver and judge, the one who's able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? Our job is to point them to God, namely Jesus in flesh, and his removal of their sin by dying on a cross and being resurrected. After it's all said and done, that right there, pretty well, all churches need to stand on that and not budge. We don't have to go around bad mouthing the world, what all they're doing. We look at them, we see it, and we're like, man, boy, do they ever need some counseling and some Bible teaching? But we're relics of the past now. It didn't take long. I mean, we hadn't been there for 250 years, but it is upon us now.
A lot of people from his former life thought he was a kook now. He's just some religious nut. I don't know what's happened to Phil. But then through the years, you were able to go back, including with Big Al and a lot of us, and share Jesus with him. And so all of a sudden that crack pot was really just a cracked pot because you were a jar of clay that God was shining his light through you. So
After about 15 years, they all my old ex-running buddies all came together saying, basically, he gone.
that's right.
He's out.
He's out.
Unreachable.
Right. Which is what you needed. Which
Well, one of them stepped out.
Yep.
Received the gospel. Once he saw what it was all about.
Yep.
Death came near. The doctors, when it came down to death, the same ones who had deserted me, and I had deserted them, one of them said, "What did that?"
Yeah.
He finally said, "What's the story?"
Yeah.
Well, I told him the story. He was driving down on that old Bronco of his, and I told him the story. He said, "I said, you're an atheist. What do you think?" I said, "You could go at any minute." And he said, "That's what I have just now come into grips with." He said, I could die at any time. Aneurysm near my heart. So I baptized him. 2 months later, he dropped dead.
Yep. And you spoke at his funeral.
And I was standing there when he's in the casket, and I'm speaking to the town, brought my reputation with me, as rough as it was. And all of them are sitting there.
I wish we'd had that on film.
They asked me to speak, and I said, "Well, I
Jamie,
don't
this
know
is
about that. I don't even
this
have
from
a
the
suit.
duck call
Most
room
people
is
at
what it
funerals
is.
have a suit."
They're
I said, "But I
playing
don't
it
own
now.
one." They said, "Don't worry about it. Just do it."
You were still a
This
little
is,
fearful about
like
preachers and all that, even back in those days, because you were
commemoration
barely
Yeah.
new.
Phil.
Yeah, I spoke to the whole town about when Al died, in their mind, but my words to them was, I said, "See that casket right there, old big Al's in there?" I said, "I'll see him again as you go forward. Number one, live a quiet life. Number two, mind your own business, Jace. Number three, work
Why you
hard
say
so
Jace?
that your daily life will win the respect of the outsiders. And number four, don't be dependent on anybody." That's the fourth thing.
Amen.
When I die, don't cry. Dance, sing, but don't cry when I die. When I die, you say, "He made it because I watched him as he walked through the years. It's faithful to Jesus. Let's all squall over it." Don't do that.
Yeah.
Celebrate. Celebrate.
That's what's up. You look like Si right there, don't he? I guess that's it. I guess that was it. That's what's up. Well, y'all, I just wanted to get back on and share that with y'all when it come across my screen. I know a lot of y'all was in here watching when we was playing some other stuff. But, yeah, that's, death is a funny thing, man. A lot of people worry about it. Me, for one, I've never been worried about dying. I don't know. Ain't nothing to worry about, Y'all have a good afternoon. If you ain't right, something telling you to get right, I suggest you do it. Y'all take it easy. Peace.